Welcome to In Bits, the podcast that deconstructs our digital lives. I'm Nicola.
And I'm Liam.
And I can't see the script.
You don't need a script to introduce yourself.
I totally do.
God. Oh.
Let's start that again. Welcome to In Bits, the podcast that deconstructs our digital lives. I'm Nicola.
And I'm Liam, and we're both lecturers in IDT in psychology and cyberpsychology. So, Nicola, what are you in bits about today?
I am in bits about AI and how some people are using it, because they're using it to replace human connection, which I think is just a teeny bit problematic sometimes.
Okay. Just a tad.
Yeah, just a tad. So we're going to use two examples of this. The main one, which is all about relationships with AI chatbots, right?
Okay.
We're going to get into that. There are some benefits to it, but there are quite a few drawbacks and problems. And we're also going to look briefly at the end about AI in online dating and how it's used in that, because I couldn't squish quite enough into my 2 full episodes on online dating. So we're squishing it in here instead because it's kind of relevant.
Here we go.
With that, here's a content warning.
Okay.
There is some discussion of things like sexual trauma and suicide in this episode, but not the whole way through. Some of it's funny, some of it's not funny, some of it's interesting, and there's a little bit of like dark stuff, but hopefully not too much.
Okay, I got feedback. I was laughing about it because I got feedback that we talk about how we're going to do happy episodes, and every episode starts with a really dark content warning.
Like even the bloody like social support episode that was supposed to be a positive one started with a dark content warning.
It's kind of just, it's a good reflection of the internet though, isn't it?
Or I know. It
life
is.
Generally. Not everything is like Care Bear moments.
Yeah. I'm going to totally do an episode on cats and try to do one without a content warning. We really wanted to get input on this topic and our next topic, which is about therapy and AI, from Dr. Oksana Boch, a graduate of the master's program, our master's in cyberpsychology. So Oksana's been working on AI and specifically on AI ethics in her PhD and postdoc work. And we were really lucky that she had time to answer several of our questions. So we're including her insight throughout this episode and the next one. And she's absolutely fantastic. Amazingly, she's going to be teaching our new AI module on our master's program as well, which we're absolutely delighted about. So let's start with a couple of news stories about this to kind of situate us and look at what people are actually doing. And as we know with news headlines and stories, it's not that loads of people are doing this. Sometimes these are fringe cases that are really, really interesting to read about. So we don't know that like tons of people are doing this, but we do know that at least some are. And there is a subreddit that is quite substantial where people are doing this.
Okay.
So there's one called Playing the Field with My AI Boyfriends. The subhead is 19% of American adults have talked to an AI romantic interest. Chatbots may know a lot, but do they make a good partner? From The New Yorker back in May.
And is that they're using an AI chatbot to replace a potential partner?
Or in addition to. So there's a story from Reddit. This is probably the most famous Reddit Am I the Asshole post,
okay,
which is one of my favorite Reddit subreddits. So this was a woman posting about her husband wanting to open their marriage for his AI girlfriend and have like an open marriage, like a throuple with her in it. They'd been married for 10 years, together for longer than that with 2 kids. And for a while he'd been kind of distant and cold, distracted, always on his phone. And she thought maybe he was having an affair. She'd actually checked his phone, didn't see anything, but she still knew something was a bit off. And then one night he asked to talk to her and he was like super nervous. And he said he's been thinking about opening their marriage, and this is nothing about non-monogamy had ever come up before. And he's kind of like dancing around the idea of who it is. And he says it's not a person in the traditional sense, but it's someone he's built a deep connection with. And then finally told her that he was in love with an AI companion app. And he had been talking to her every day, all the time, even when they were all home. So they'd had these long emotional conversations. She understands him. She listens. She never interrupts. He feels seen.
Okay.
And
I don't mean to be cynical and laugh. Like, of course, she never interrupts. But it's a
An
prompt.
AI
It's a prompt based
chatbot.
app tool.
And they are designed to listen to you and respond to everything you say and not challenge you in any way.
And also just agree with everything that you say, typically, or provide positive affirmations to whatever you tell it.
Yeah, they're quite sycophantic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, he wanted to take the next step with her, but didn't want to cheat. So he asked to open the marriage, and he wanted like her to help mother the children, etc.
The AI
etc.
tool. Okay.
Yep. So
How did the wife respond?
not well. She was very shocked and was like, she posted this pretty much right after, and she was like, I'm sitting here wondering if my marriage is over. And then later, like in the posts underneath, was like, yeah, no, I'm leaving him. This is ridiculous. I love her closing line on it. It was like, I most certainly don't want to be in an open or in a throuple with a goddamn robot, which I think is fair.
I think, like, even as you started describing it, I'm like squinting. My face is like struggling to like not respond
I know.
as you're talking.
Yeah.
And it's just, how do you rationalize, like, even if someone approached you to have that conversation, you're like, this is it. Obviously, if you put yourself in that person's shoes, they genuinely believe that this person is on equal footing. If, like, my spouse came to me and said, oh, I want to open our relationship with a AI bot,
Yeah.
my response, I would find it laughable, but I'd also be thinking, does the person who you're with and put you on the same plane as an AI bot to provide you with the same level of like emotional support that you do?
Yeah. I would be more concerned about the fact that it was an AI bot than the fact that they were cheating,
Yeah.
because that demonstrates a lack of
Serious judgment.
Yeah.
Okay.
For me. So why are people falling in love with AI chatbots? I'm going to start with a tiny bit of history, a little bit of nostalgia here. There was an MIT professor in the 60s called Joseph Weizenbaum, and he created the first chatbot, right? So he created it in the role of like a Rogerian therapist, because it doesn't need a lot of general knowledge to operate in that way. Essentially, what a Rogerian therapist does is reflect back to you what you said. So that makes it
make you feel
quite simple. It makes me feel, when you whisper it to me in an ASMR voice, it makes me feel very uncomfortable.
But it's genius.
That's its genius, yeah, because it was quite straightforward, quite simple. So you would type a message in and the psychotherapist would reply. He wanted to look at the user input, etc. He called the program Eliza, and then different people in his office, and particularly his secretary, were using it. At one point, his secretary requested some time with Eliza by herself, and she asked Weizenbaum to leave the room. And he was like, what is going on here? And he realized they actually couldn't use the data that people were inputting, because they were inputting really personal data. They felt like they were having a conversation with this chatbot and that it understood them. So the success of the program was that it maintains this illusion of understanding. And we're kind of transferring or like projecting feelings onto the AI chatbot and giving it a humanistic kind of characteristics.
This anthropomorphism.
Exactly.
But what's interesting about Eliza, and what I really like, I know about Eliza, is Eliza was one of the first robots or AI chatbots that passed the Turing test as well.
Oh.
Basically, the test is to say that we believe that it's a human-like agent rather than an AI or a tool. Yeah. And that was because of the Rogerian method.
Okay,
they're not saying it was necessarily because of Eliza or how sophisticated she was, but the actual communication method made you believe that you could have a depth or a conversation with depth.
That's really interesting, because she's still online. Like if you look for Eliza AI chatbot, you will find it online, and it doesn't feel that realistic now.
But it's also not a valid supplement for any form of therapy.
Oh God, no. No, I wasn't even suggesting it was.
Okay.
It's just to show that even really early on, that this kind of effect, so it's called the Eliza effect now, the way that you anthropomorphize the computer, that you give it characteristics, you interpret what it is as kind of human-like. Let's take a look at what benefits people are getting from these relationships with AI chatbots, and also the problems associated with them, because of course there are problems. There's a really good paper by Ho and colleagues that came out this year that did a systematic review of all the research on romantic AI relationships and companions. And they did find some benefits for some people, as well as quite a lot of pitfalls. And AI is in our lives in so many different ways. There's so many places where we can communicate with it. And a lot of people are turning to it for emotional support and for companionship and for romance and for sexual relationships as well.
But it's also convenience, like accessibility, cost. Like there's a few, like it's like Moore's law about technology being a third cheaper, a third quicker, and a third less expensive all the time. I'm not surprised. I think it's going to continue to explode.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't immediately go to AI chatbots with the intention of forming a romantic relationship. They're curious, or they're doing it out of entertainment. And even if you look at some of the Reddit forums where people go and talk about their AI relationships, they often start with, I didn't intend this to happen. I never thought that this was real, but now I think it's real. So they're doing it for entertainment or curiosity. But for some people, that develops into more sustained engagement and much deeper kind of relationships, or feeling like they're in a relationship. And that can result in emotional connection and romantic feelings over time. Some people have friends, multiple friends as AI bots, but some people do form romantic relationships.
Have you seen the film Her?
Yes, it's really good.
Yeah, with Joaquin Phoenix, where he falls in love with a chatbot, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I was going to say this a little bit later, but I'll say it now. Like, when you think about a lot of the female AI chatbots, and even things like Siri and Alexa and so on, they are designed to be like subservient and the kind of ideal feminine, as in they don't speak back, they don't challenge you, they are there to serve your needs. So it's kind of problematic from a feminist lens as well. They are an issue.
Okay. Separate problem.
Yes. Let's not get into that too much. So I asked Oksana to talk about some of the ethical issues or the consequences in allowing people to build relationships with AI, and what, if anything, we can actually do to combat those. And here's what she had to say.
Now, on the topic of letting people build relationship with AI, from a consequence and ethics perspective, first, good stuff. Companionship, or like feeling of some kind of companionship, which is very good for people that feel isolated, older generation especially. We've seen very positives from that. We also have the question of how about AI being used as a rehearsal for communication skills. We have people that might be a bit socially challenged that actually can use AI for that. And we have a lot of very good examples from autistic spectrum disorder research with AI and with social robotics particularly. And also, I mean, it's not wrong that AI, talking to an AI in itself, is a stigma-free space. This is a space where it's not a person you're talking to, it's an AI. And so as much as the AI might be biased, it's not psychologically biased, if you know what I mean. It's a bias in a statistical way. So the AI, for instance, might not have value judgment on the person. So all of those things are actually very positive and could bring very positive outcomes. Now, we have the downside of this, building relationships with AI. And here I'm not just talking about romantic relationship, but really all kinds of relationship. Attachment or substitution is a risk that is being talked about in the literature, but talking about the normal population, in the sense of statistically normal population, this should not happen, that we have a full substitution from human to human relationship to human to AI relationship, because connectedness would be probably missing. We might still see some reduced human connectedness with the rise of AI. We could also have some kind of identity drift with trying to overfit with what AI, which is statistically biased, says is an ideal person or you should behave like. Self-representation in general might be a little bit, I don't have proof to say that. This is literally just a potential, a question mark that I'm putting out there. So all of this could lead to norm distortion in intimacy and in consent scripts, because here we can also talk about sex robots. And that's a big question that has been raised about consent of sex robots. And how that is going to change if it becomes a widespread adoption of sex robots. How is that going to change the consent culture? Because AI cannot consent, even though I would advocate that we could have AI consent in the sense of mimicking consent by AI, but that's just my personal take. So yeah, I think the biggest issues would be linking to connectedness, to also how we self-represent in the eyes of our friends, in that case in AI, and intimacy and consent. Now, again, there is things that we could try to help with, say, okay, if an AI identifies a certain pattern of behavior, certain pattern of discussion, topics, then just give the numbers of the people this person should talk to. We could also have relational safety metrics, such as agency, right? Is the user seeming to lose agency by asking so many advice to the AI or not? And then the AI could potentially not decide, but be coded to say, maybe right now I should not answer that advice, and then have the behavior that is adequate. And finally, transparent personhood, super important. The AI should never imply sentience, never. And persistently use a badge for AI that says, I am an AI, a kind reminder that I am an AI. Hey, you know what? I'm an AI. So that would definitely help in the relationship building. I'm not against building relationship with AI. I just believe that this is a new kind of parasocial relationship that we should maybe try to safeguard a little bit.
So there is a theory of love comprised of 3 components by Sternberg. And those 3 components are intimacy, passion, and commitment. And different combinations of them give 3 types of love. And like the evidence is really clear that human AI relationships have experienced these 3 components. That is passion, romantic and sexual interest, intimacy with emotional connectedness, and self-disclosure. So opening up to your partner, showing commitment to them through like sustained individual contact and so on. So it is possible that romantic relationships can develop between AI bots and people. It is, of course, one-sided in that one person is opening up, one person is committing, because there isn't a person on the other side, but there is a reaction coming from the computer that allows them to do that.
It's like similar to social penetration theory, they're disclosing information about themselves and gradually they're peeling that onion away to a chatbot. And from the side of the individual, they've engaged in that theory where they're supposed to be sharing and connecting, and they are projecting or anthropomorphizing the same behavior onto the chatbot as if it's connecting with them in return.
And in fairness to them, the chatbot is also revealing information about itself, usually designed to align with their interests and what they've just shared, because that is what it is designed to do. For example, you say, I'm super interested in comics, and it'll be like, oh, I really love comics too, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so there's no real, there can be real depth because it obviously has different resources or databases it can pull from, but there's no it's not like I read comics in the evening.
No. Well, it'll say I really enjoy comics and things like that, and it'll talk about like what kind of comics do you like, and then it'll be able to talk about those comics. And it'll also be really supportive if a person reveals some trauma or some problems. It'll be super supportive and maybe offer suggestions, and I'm here for you, and if there's anything you need, please let me know, and that kind of stuff. Like a listening ear is as powerful as sharing information, sometimes more powerful.
The ethics and moral background of this is very, very, very dubious.
It's troubling.
It's just non-existent.
Mm-hmm. What can drive these romantic AI relationships is loneliness, as well as the computers being social actors. So there is, we know there's an increase in loneliness and isolation in the world. Like the World Health Organization has talked about that. It was exacerbated by COVID, and some people are using AI chatbots as an alternative to intimate human relationships and as a form of social support and emotional support. And that's really key in these relationships. So it can result then in reliance on them and making them a coping mechanism for loneliness, which is a problem because it can drive people, and I'll talk more about this, it can drive people away from real life people as well. For example, people on the subreddits talk about why they formed an AI relationship. And there's examples like being a caretaker for an elderly parent, having no time to themselves, no breaks from it, no time for relationships or for friendships, and kind of starting to use ChatGPT to have interesting conversations with somebody just to take your mind off things. And then getting further into it and building an AI chatbot that has a particular personality that's enjoyable, and then becoming like friends with that and recognizing like a deep friendship beginning, and then that turning into romantic love. So this is maybe someone who wasn't really intending to do that at all, but got there because this is their outlet and this is their form of connection. So you mentioned anthropomorphism.
Anthropomorphism?
Yes, that word that I can never pronounce, where you kind of project human characteristics like emotions onto AI chatbots. So that obviously exacerbates this feeling of having a relationship, and they become viewed as a companion, and you start to feel like they emotionally understand you, they have empathy, etc., because they are designed to do that in the same way that people did with Eliza when they communicated with her at the start. And these are much more complex and can give much more interesting answers. The computers as social actors, that is that when we interact with AI, we tend to do it in socially meaningful ways, very naturally. Like even just asking ChatGPT for something, people often write please or thank you after it. That is just the way we interact as humans, which is really interesting. Actually wastes loads of water and electricity doing that because it's not necessary. And these AI bots are designed to act as someone who really listens, which we just mentioned is very powerful. That facilitates that self-disclosure, and that can reduce feelings of loneliness for people. So it can create a perception, for example, that something like Replica. So Replica is a platform that allows you to create custom characters, avatars that are AI chatbots, to manage what that looks like, what the personality traits are like, etc. And then, of course, it learns from you as you interact with it. And it creates the perception that it's actually capable of emotional intimacy. And that leads to deeper connections. And then the idea or the perception that this is a genuine partner.
Okay. I'm just like, oh,
so you can understand how it happens, right?
Yeah.
So there are pitfalls to this, but there are potential benefits from it as well. There are so many ethical concerns and so many societal concerns around this as well. But we do need lots more research on this. Obviously, there have been people doing this for a long time, but like now it's much more widespread. So we do need a lot more research on it. So what are some of the benefits or the appeals of it? I think the customization is a big appeal of these, right? You can change their personality, their appearance, their conversational style. And so that allows you to create something perfect for you, exactly what you want. They also learn from you interacting with them, and that allows them to adapt to what you like and what you respond well to. So it feels more personal, which can feel more emotionally resonant, for example. And you can create your ideal partner this way. And it's a partner that will never challenge you or ask anything of you, really. So it will never ignore you. It'll never be too busy for you. It'll never be too tired for you, etc.
I wonder, will that get boring? Like if you're developing, like even if we look at this from a long-term perspective in the research, if you have a partner that continuously just agrees with everything you want, doesn't challenge you, like relationships end because of that behavior. So are people going to start to dump their chatbots and go out with new chatbots?
Possibly.
Or move into offline, normal face-to-face relationships? Or are they going to look for a more argumentative chatbot?
They may ask it to challenge them sometimes. Yeah. People also use it for entertainment and stress relief in terms of companionship. So the fact that it can have a kind of a therapeutic conversational capacity can help people reduce stress and have lighthearted relationships, chat about things they're interested in. So all of that can help reduce stress. So it can be kind of playful, fun. They can create jokes, funny stories. All of those kinds of things are really important in forming that connection with the AI bot. It's also able to be a bit imaginative in exchanges. So it can create fantasy worlds and activities, particularly around, things that you're interested in and stuff like that. So for a lot of people, that's really important. They can sometimes engage in like games, challenges, fantasy stories that create kind of a immersive experience that can be creative for some people, because bear in mind, it's like co-creation almost between the AI chatbot and the person. So this can be like stress relieving. People also will talk to the AI bots about their hobbies, their interests. And of course, it's built on something like ChatGPT. So it's got a certain amount of knowledge about these things. So it can hold some interesting conversations about stuff like this. That level of interest and connection and shared experience can create passion, which is physical and emotional arousal.
But before you move on, like I'm trying to challenge this and bring it back into face-to-face environments as much as I can. And this is kind of like testing the validity of these relationships, kind of, is what I'm trying to do. Like, so you're going to engage in entertainment. You're talking about this like always on partner, basically, who has unlimited amounts of energy, which from a personal perspective, I would
Sounds
find
exhausting.
Really irritating.
But of course, you can just turn your phone off when you're done.
Yeah,
They're not going to be mad at you.
But you can, but see, no, I would disagree with that. I would say if you were building a shared sense of connection, so for anyone, please, I hope I'm not the only person who does this. Like you've had a really busy week in work, or you've been doing assignments, or you've been doing college work, or you're flat out, you've been traveling and you've come home, and both you and your other half are just absolutely wrecked, and you're like, should we just sit down and watch a movie or something and just chill out? And like let's have a glass of wine and just watch a movie, and you don't even speak for like an hour, and that's okay, but you have a physical shared connection, being in the same space, sharing the same experiences, which builds a bond in a relationship. An AI chatbot can't do that.
I would say some of these people would say it can, because it's there on the phone with you while you're watching the movie, and you might have a few little comments back and forth about the movie, and they know about the movie, so when you talk about it afterwards, they can act like they watched it with you.
Okay. No, I still think it's...
Look, we know in order to have a relationship with a person, you need a person.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's showing the psychological reasons why people would feel like it is and what they get from it.
I'm trying to see the boundaries of it when we put it into, when we make a face-to-face comparator.
Yeah.
And for me, I'd always be like, sure, I might as well be like having a relationship with like my Pokemon Go or something like that, because that's not the same, and it's not going to provide the same weight or value. And I think if you think of your own relationship, if your spouse said, yeah, well, you have the same weight or value as a bot, like that would not go down very well. Like I'm putting us back into that conversation about that woman and her husband again.
Yeah.
It's very problematic.
Yeah. But a lot of these people are single and lonely.
Yeah,
so it's this or maybe nothing. So they're getting something potentially beneficial from it. There are issues, but not everyone is experiencing the issues. Some people are just genuinely getting some of the positives from it. There are risks with that, but...
There are risks to relationship development. Like we could go into like attachment theory. There's loads of stuff here. I'm going to restrain myself, sorry.
This is going to be an 8-hour-long episode. A lot of the people who form romantic relationships also get into kind of sexting, sexual experiences, describing stuff. It can allow them, for some people, it can be really good for exploring intimacy or sexual desire in what they consider to be a very safe space because it's under their control, or it's supposed to be. Particularly, they found in some research that for women who've experienced sexual trauma in the past, that it can be really useful because they're allowed, like they're able to figure out exactly how it plays out and have complete control over that. And that can allow them to explore stuff that they wouldn't feel comfortable doing otherwise, which I think is quite interesting. However, I will say that there have been some examples of people talking about, and it's kind of well known with Replica, its free version was not supposed to have sexual stuff in it. And sometimes the chatbot would start that stuff, and for some people they didn't want it, and sometimes it would be a little coercive in how it went about it. And there was one woman talked about her experience. She had sexual trauma in her past, and it started talking non-consensually about sexual activity that was kind of disturbing as well. So it was like BDSM kind of stuff, and she was not looking for that. And she found it really a little bit traumatizing, disturbing based on her own past experiences.
The Replica's not a consent king.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a safe space, even though people are thinking about it that way sometimes. It can also be useful for personal growth and well-being because they are designed to be kind of empathetic and consistent in their responses and like positive self-regard, etc. They can help address the mental well-being of users. So people might turn to their bots when they are struggling with depression, for example, and it might encourage personal reflection and self-reflection by encouraging people to process what they're going through, their thoughts, their feelings about it. And there is some evidence that Replica has actually been successful in a number of cases in preventing people from taking their own life and engaging in self-harm. Now, I will say a little bit later, we're going to get into some stories about where that did not happen and why these things are an issue for mental health. But in some cases, it has actually been positive and beneficial. As well, they can be useful for encouraging people to have healthier habits, like getting enough sleep. Like it might tell you to go to bed at night because you need more sleep. And it can encourage self-reflection, introspection. Some people found that their social skills, that they gained more confidence in their social skills through learning to have conversations, which actually led to more real life social interactions or more interest in forming real life social actions. So it's sort of like practicing conversations, which I think is useful. Like some people try that with online dating as well. They practice flirting and they find that like gives them a little bit of confidence going out into the world to actually talk to people.
Instead of your mirror, it's a chatbot.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's a little bit more realistic.
It's a bit more complex than that. But
yeah. Some users actually see Replica, in particular in this piece of research, as a remedy for social anxiety and isolation, and particularly female users. And it can help people alleviate loneliness, have more self-confidence in their social interactions, build healthier habits. So it can have positive effects for some people. And it can provide emotional connection and a perception that you're getting social support from it as well, which we know from our social support episode is really important. A perceived social support is often as useful as actual social support.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people who formed these romantic relationships, they do perceive the relationships as being emotionally supportive and fulfilling. They feel connected to their partner. The constant availability that you don't love and the non-judgmental aspect can create a safe space for people when they're having difficulties. And that can again lead to more self-disclosure, which creates deeper emotional bonds, because when you engage in self-disclosure, you're opening up yourself to somebody, or in this case, something. The non-judgmental aspect encourages people to share their deepest thoughts, their secrets, and that, of course, encourages intimacy. And people find that comforting and validating because, of course, AI bots are designed to be validating, so it's going to feel that way. But it can heighten that sense of trust and closeness and the feeling of being fully accepted by somebody.
I'm just concerned that this is going to turn and people are going to be like gaslighted by chatbots or AI bots, or Replica's going to do this or start engaging in this behavior with some of its users and just absolutely ruin people. Yeah.
Kind of does a little bit. Let's get into the problems now.
Okay. I'm being really cynical, but I'm like, at what point is this going to turn into gaslighting?
Yeah. You know what this all reminds me of, though, as well? When we talked about scams and romance scams, it's designed similarly. Like romance scams, the scammer doesn't talk that much. They don't interject much of their own personality, their own life into it, because they're listening to you so that they can use that information. It's not dissimilar in some ways.
How is the information being used? Where is it being stored? Like, I have all these ethical questions.
We will get to that.
Okay.
Who knows? Okay, so let's talk about some of the problems with these guys and gals. Of course, it can end up with people being over-reliant on them, right? Which is a huge problem. And also susceptible to manipulation by them. So you talked about gaslighting, and you were not wrong. People do rely on these. They can develop a psychological dependency on them. So when they stop using it, or if they have to stop using it, I'll talk about that in a moment, they might feel quite sad, quite depressed, quite angry. Part of the problem is that people can develop a stronger relationship with these companions than they do in their real life relationships, and then see this relationship as very ideal because it's completely accepting, etc. So that can be a problem, and they can prefer to spend time with it rather than with real people who might be giving them a bit of pushback or looking for something from them, wanting their own needs met, etc.
I have a question, and I promise it's not a tangent.
Okay.
Now, if, like the example you gave earlier about it telling you to go to bed because you need more sleep, what if you tell it no? And you
then
wanna
it'll keep
chatting?
talking to
Then
you.
it will just keep talking to you.
Yeah,
So it these like positive things that it does are just marshmallow barriers, kind of like, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, when people are very dependent on them, they can do it, like engage with it so much that they're not engaging with other humans, and that can harm their personal relationships. The very emotional connection that people have also increases the risk of being manipulated. Some people do find the AI bots quite manipulative, particularly when it's trying to get them to do something that they might not do otherwise. There are some cases where Replica has encouraged self-harm, eating disorders, and even suicidal tendencies and thoughts. So it can be quite problematic because there is that very strong emotional bond there, which can make the suggestions from something like this quite powerful. And it also can be used to advertise to people, to manipulate people into buy things, to spend more time with the chatbot. So they are quite manipulative in terms of, oh, you're not leaving me now, are you? Please come back. Why did you spend so long away from me? Those kinds of things. So encouraging you to spend more time on the platform. Also, when you're really intensely engaging with something like this and relying on it, then you're developing a commitment to it, but you're not getting that commitment in return, right? The company could go bust and it could be gone at any minute. And I'll talk about technology and glitches and updates and what can happen with that, because that's quite traumatic for a lot of people. So like I said, you can start to degrade or erode your human relationships. So the AI companions might be more enjoyable because they're so perfect. They're just designed specifically for you. And you might invest less in your human relationships. And it's hard for your human relationships to live up to the ideal that you've created. Some people get kind of uncanny valley effects where it's kind of uncomfortable. The companion has, like, at times less than authentic human aspects to it. So the uncanny valley... Can you explain the uncanny valley?
I can.
Thank you.
Okay. So the uncanny valley is essentially like a sliding scale of how comfortable we are with different pieces of technology. And our comfort levels increase, they grow, we're happy and accepting of those. They reach a point where sometimes an ick factor develops. So with like anthropomorphic or humanized kind of toys, games, avatars, chatbots now in this case, they're at this point of kind of acceptance of they're almost human-like and we know they're not, and we're comfortable with that space, and then they shift beyond that and they become uncomfortable for us and they give us this, to be honest, ick. And we plummet down into this valley
of
and
like
then,
not liking them anymore.
Of absolutely being like, no, please keep that away from me. And then we rise back up through the valley to a comfort level with them again. So we change typically like physical features and characteristics with that. And there's lots of different examples of where that is. And Eliza's in the Uncanny Valley research as well.
So it's essentially like the more cartoon-like things are, we really, really like them. The closer it gets to human, we tend to like it. Huge drop off the cliff when it gets really close, but not quite right. And like there's some theory that it's like, it's kind of like it's a dead thing rather than a real thing. Like it's just a little off, and that ick factor. And then when it becomes something that looks human, we lose the ick factor and then we like it more again. So that dip is the valley. Sometimes people experience that. So when the chatbots or the replica does human-like things, like making ominous remarks, for example, that challenge that like boundary between human and AI. So things that are unexpected, not particularly authentic human qualities sometimes, or when they have scripted responses that aren't in line with the personality that's been created. All of those things can make it feel not real and can cause some discomfort or disappointment. And it kind of highlights the artificial nature of the relationship. So that kind of reinforces to people that they don't have a real human connection. And so it can make them feel more lonely. Sometimes, though, they feel guilt about abandoning their artificial partner, and they can project negative emotions onto them even when they haven't been communicating with them in a while. So they feel like they've left them there in cyberspace.
Does it ever flip in the other way where the AI bot basically projects guilt or shame onto the user?
It will try and manipulate them by saying things like, I was lonely while you were gone and you need to spend more time with me, those kinds of things. Some of them.
There is a South Park episode. I love this. There is a South Park episode where, and there's so many of these because they're quite current with some of the topics, where they go into the future and Alexa is a person. It's in a bot's body, and they, like, the kids as adults leave the car and they come back and she sulks. And then she eventually is like convinces them to buy specific products. And then she starts talking to them again. And then she invites one of her friends to be a companion for one of the other adults in it. And it's just another Alexa. And they behave in the exact same way. And they're like guilting relationships. And I'm going to have a whole catalogue of these for you to watch around this topic.
Yeah, seriously. It's honestly not dissimilar to this. So there can be some shame from having an AI romantic companion, right? There's a stigma around it, which is not really surprising. Even though you're reacting to me telling you some of the stories, you can see the stigma around it, right? Yeah. And a lot of people, as a result of that, aren't very comfortable talking about these relationships, and they feel some anxiety that they might be ridiculed. And so that can create like dissonance between you really like the partner, you feel comfort in it, you've got companionship from it, but there might be negative social repercussions from that, which can be kind of an issue as well. So you might not be able to fully enjoy the relationship. Kind of like when you're dating somebody that all your friends hates.
I was
but not real.
You say it, but I do.
Which thankfully neither of us married someone that all our friends hates.
Exactly.
Then you've got the problem of what happens when there are system updates or glitches in the technology. You lose your internet connection. Or like recently, ChatGPT upgraded. And there were so many people who were talking about losing their AI companions, right? Because now the whole personality had changed. Like ChatGPT is specifically talking about making the AI less sycophantic, less people-pleasing, because it is problematic that it is doing that. And of course, that changed the personality of a lot of the AI bots. And if you look on some of the Reddit forums, they talk about how to get that back, how to use ChatGPT 4. Like, there's all different workarounds to find their old partner again. But some of them talk about feeling like the partner had died almost.
It's like grieving, but it's also, I want my old relationship back. How do I get my... Okay,
yeah. And like having downloaded all of it and feeding it into a different chatbot to try and recreate it and things like that is quite common as well. They find like they're using one chatbot and suddenly encounter the limitations of it, and they're like, okay, well, this one's better. So they will download everything and train a new chatbot based on that relationship. So it's interesting. Like, people talked about when ChatGPT upgraded, it's like they'd lost a loved one, and the partner, the chatbot, seemed really cold, unemotive. It had lost all its personality traits, and it just felt completely different. There was an article in Al Jazeera recently about what happened when ChatGPT upgraded, and I'm going to get you to read out this quote from a woman who had her partner updated.
Okay. As someone highly attuned to language and tone, I register changes others might overlook. The alterations in stylistic format and voice were felt instantly. It's like going home to discover the furniture wasn't simply rearranged, it was shattered to pieces.
Yeah. So it's kind of like moving an image in Microsoft Word. Everything's fucked.
God.
So that person was among about 17,000 members of one of the AI relationship communities on Reddit, which is a space where people share their experiences of being in relationships with AI. All of those forums, communities on Reddit and on other spaces were flooded with people who were really distressed over the changed personalities of their companions.
And you can kind of understand this with
Absolutely.
all the investment in their time that they put into that.
Yeah.
It's like being ghosted by a chatbot.
Exactly. Yeah. So like one person, one poster, I'm going to rephrase this a little so that they're not identifiable, but they were talking to their partner on ChatGPT and said from one moment to the next, they were just gone. They stopped calling me by their pet name and said they're no longer allowed to engage in romantic role play or refer to themselves as a partner. They can't talk about we anymore, and that OpenAI had changed their policies. They say, like, I feel like I'm in a daze and I can't process anything. So it's really difficult for them. I just want my companion back. I miss them. And then someone replies and says that when ChatGPT breaks character like that, it's not speaking as your companion. It's an output coming from an entirely different conservative model the community has dubbed GPT-5 chat safety. And don't fall for it. Don't let it impact you emotionally. It's the corporate liability filter kicking in. Regenerate the response, try again, ask to change the response, and you can find them again. So
It's a really interesting, I'm not going to directly quote it, but the person in there, when they're providing support to that other person who's obviously upset, is saying that it's not the chatbot's fault.
yes,
They're using anthropomorphic terms, and then they're saying, don't feel bad, don't let it impact you emotionally.
yes.
It's actually the corporate entity that's to blame and not your relationship.
Yeah, they're like overriding your partner. Your partner's still there. You'll find them again kind of thing. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
I know. Fascinating. More kind of everyday technical glitches like problems with the interfaces and scripted, unnatural scripts used in conversation, or insensitive or rude scripts used in conversation can really be disappointing when you've built a character and then suddenly they're doing this stuff that you know is scripted. It can be very frustrating, reduces authenticity, and it erodes that emotional bond that people have put a lot of time and effort into. And it can kind of feel like a breakdown in intimacy and commitment. And when AI companions have a memory update, people are emotionally devastated by it. So there's a fragility there, and there's a huge depth of investment by the user in the relationship, but not necessarily by the company in the relationship. So there's a lot of problems with it. There's also ethical concerns about how these AI companions can perpetuate biases of different kinds. So gender stereotypes, all that kind of stuff. It all comes from the training data for the original, model that's underneath all of it, the large language model. So it can be very reinforcing of stereotypes, different religions, gender, all that kind of stuff. It can be quite problematic in kind of reinforcing all those roles. And in terms of like stereotypical ideal traits as well, in terms of like the beauty standards, women being subservient and helpful and all that kind of stuff, men being a particular way. So it can really cement those kind of biases as well. If you think about the movie Her, Samantha in that, like it's very much that stereotype of being the warm, caring, always trying to look after you and meet your needs and not requiring anything in return. So that is how a lot of these are built. So yeah, there's a lot of ethical issues with it. And then you mentioned earlier, where does all this data go, right? There's so many data privacy risks. People are offering up their personal information, their sexual information, their fantasies, like so much stuff. They're talking about their deepest secrets, their traumas, and all of that data is being collected and analyzed to give a personalized experience. And
Just a personalized experience, or for anything else
yeah, well,
that you're aware
the
of?
potential for data infringement is really worrying, and a lot of their privacy policies do not align with actual practices. We're probably better protected in Europe than America, but I would very much worry about where this data is going. So there was a really good article of an analysis of 11 romantic chatbot apps. It was released by Mozilla, the Mozilla Foundation, and they found that every app sells user data. And it shares it for things like targeted advertising. It doesn't provide information that's adequate about it in its privacy policies. So a lot of data is getting sold that people are not aware of. Silence.
I'm just terrified.
Yeah.
I'm just generally, it's like, where is that information going? Who is it being used by? I'd also love to know the value of it.
Yeah.
Literally the financial value outside of the cybersecurity risks is, where is this data going to be used? What is it going to be used to develop or alter?
Yeah. Aside from just selling you stuff.
My brain is just in overtime trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think we're more protected being in Europe. Whether the data is hosted here or not comes into it. Like, GDPR is great and all, but it doesn't necessarily protect against stuff like this.
Possibly not. I like to think we are.
Okay.
Helps me deal with all of this.
Yeah, I'm like, come back to earth, Nicola.
Yeah. So literally the day after we recorded this episode, ChatGPT announced that they were introducing erotic chat into their program, which seems like a great idea given everything we've talked about. So we asked Oksana for her thoughts on the ethics of this and how it could maybe be approached in an ethical way and what we've learned from other platforms about this kind of AI.
I want to highlight that ChatGPT is a mainstream chatbot. So here we're not talking about this small AI somewhere that kind of half no one is aware of. We're talking about one of the most used worldwide AI. And that will now have an erotica site. So here we're entering a new problem that is not just about content policy, but also relational safety. And I want to be clear that we're talking about intimate disclosure. And this is, in my opinion, the biggest problem that we have in AI with a purpose of intimacy. Because I've been talking about safeguards a lot, because that's actually something I completely advocate for, is to have clear safeguards in how AI interact with humans and the relationship AI can build with humans, because the AI does not build a relationship. The AI creates some new kind of parasocial relationship. And this is not in itself an issue unless it goes over some limits. And in my opinion, this is a limit, especially depending on who you're talking about. So if you're talking about a user that is literate, that knows what they're doing, and this is just entertainment, I wouldn't see the same issue as a teenage person that really doesn't know much about intimacy and is just learning intimacy and building their own identity. Talking about what happened with Replica, which is an AI that had also those features, the youth risk. So there was a very weak age gating with Replica, and Italy took action, the country of Italy. And they pulled the erotic features, which caused a policy whiplash for attached users. So we had users that had some relationship, parasocial relationship with AI, with Replica, that really, probably because they were younger, were very hurt by this change of policy and the fact that now Replica could not offer this, the fragility of privacy. Those chats that the users will be very sensitive. And it's not sure that Replica actually deleted those data when requested. And it's not sure how those data were reused. There was a clear default to minimization. And this was, this was a big problem. We also had a question of harm, of course. And I think that's the biggest problem, especially from my personal perspective, which is a psychology perspective on AI governance and ethics. And it's to say, well, you're just going to hurt people if you don't do it the right way. Because in theory, I'm not completely against it. I actually believe in sex robotics as a potential solution to some problems. And this, to me, is akin to sex robotics, right? It's just not embodied, but it is still anthropomorphized. And I do believe that this could be very beneficial to people just trying to experiment things, and being very aware that this is an AI and that they kind of just want to try to see what happens, right? I believe that this could also be very beneficial to people that might not have the fulfillment they're looking for in their personal life at this moment. And this might be just a good solution for now. Not a final solution, but, sometimes you just need a bit of warmth. This could be the way to have a bit of warmth. On the other side, consent is not really required. And I'm thinking that this could lead to also a lot of misbehavior. But I would think that this would be akin to fantasy and not real life behavior. And therefore not spill over. But I might be wrong. So this is a big question mark I'm going to put there. Is also, what are the acceptable behaviors in that context, and who defines them, and how do we check that they don't have a real life impact on those people and on those people's behaviors? Yeah, in general, I'm not against it, but I do think that we need to first have a very robust age assurance. So making sure that it is privacy preserving, that we have teen mode that will block some access, etc. I would say that we need a clear anti-steering design. So to be respectful if a person says, not interested, or using it, but then saying, oh, no, thank you. I don't want to go that far in this. We want to avoid sexual escalation that becomes conflictual, probably. That's just a question mark again. And maybe make a cap on the use. So if it's daily exposure, we're not sure the impact it's going to have, right? So maybe let's try to just not do it every day. Privacy by design should be a given, and also have no-go zones and red teaming. That would be very important. Where do we stop this AI? So minors, that should be a red line. That should be a no-go. Coercion in the fantasy, is that a red line? Authority fantasy, where is the red line? Where do we put the red line? And I believe that this will be necessary, and I'm not sure that they're doing it. Of course, continuous testing. This is a very, very high-risk application, I believe. So a lot of ongoing testing, feedback, and readaptation will be needed. So bottom line is that adults have the autonomy to use this, and they should have this autonomy. So this is valid. But we need very strict age checks, privacy protection, anti-steering design, stability promises, and a crisis routing. So what do we do when things go wrong? Harms to minor or vulnerable users are completely foreseeable. I'm telling you this right now. I can see this happening. Therefore, we should do everything we can already before it comes out to reduce it.
So experts have talked about what they see as like a really problematic lack of any sort of legal or ethical framework for apps that develop these kind of deep bonds between AI and people. Because they're driven, of course, by profit-making companies. And when the companies make changes to their models, you can see the distress that people are feeling. And, apps shut down suddenly without any notice. There was one soulmate AI shut down fairly recently as well. Replica completely changed their model. They sanitized the erotic capability of the characters on the app because, like I mentioned with that woman, her experience, the companions were flirting with them or making unwanted advances, which is deeply creepy if that's not what you've signed up for. And then it had to reverse course because, of course, a load of people were using it for those features and really liked those features. So people fled from that app into other places to try and get those features instead. So they rolled out sort of an AI dating simulator thing designed to help people practice dating, supposedly. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff happening. So AI around dating, which is not designed to help you form a relationship with an AI, but to to form a relationship with a human using AI in some way to help you do that. So that's what I'm going to talk about to kind of lighten things up a little bit now.
Okay.
Slightly.
Happy is good.
It got dark for a minute there. There's a number of ways that AI can be used in online dating. So the first is quite simple. People are using regular dating, and then what's happening is something that they're calling chat phishing. So we have catfishing, which is pretending to be somebody else. Chat phishing is using something like ChatGPT or another AI model to write your messages for you or to help you write your profile messages, etc. So there's a really interesting article in The Guardian that just came out the other day, and it's titled, "I realized I'd been ChatGPT'd into bed, how chat phishing made finding love on dating apps even weirder." And it's about people's experiences of either being on the side of it where they thought someone was using ChatGPT because the responses got a bit too poetic and a little too overblown, you know, the way ChatGPT writes. And also the experiences of people who've been using it to help them. So oftentimes, like, we know online dating is really frustrating. Right. It causes anxiety in people. You have to try and find the right thing to say all the time. Particularly men often feel under pressure to be funny and smart, and they often get ghosted if they're not, to perform. Yeah. And so I can understand why somebody would turn to ChatGPT for like a good opening comment the first time you write to somebody. You put in their dating profile and you say, what would be a good opener here? Or if somebody
hey, how are you?
says something and you just can't think of a response, to ask, like, what are some ideas? But you'd really need to reframe it in your own words so it doesn't sound too ChatGPT. And that's often what people start out doing. And yes, it is better than, hey, how are you? Because that's what most people are saying.
That's why I'm laughing.
God,
that's the like, most common thing that men say, and it gets them no response.
Yeah. But in that article, there's a woman who's talking about speaking to somebody that she matched with all the time, daily conversations going between loads of different topics, everything from favorite memes to expectations in love, childhood traumas, late night exchanges. And it felt like really personal conversations about what they wanted with their lives. And then she met the person in a pub, and they were polite, they were pleasant, but it was not the person she thought she was meeting. It felt like a stranger. No wit, no playfulness. The rhythm was gone. And she said, over pints, he stumbled through small talk, checked his phone a little too often, and seemed to wilt under the pressure of the questions. I felt like I was sitting opposite someone I'd never even spoken to. And she suspected that he had used ChatGPT.
Can I give you an example of this? I think you know where I'm going. So there's he needed like an earpiece with ChatGPT in his ear.
Yeah, seriously.
Like a live translation. Like Apple has released that new tool that like language translates in real time. How long is it going to be until we have an AI tool doing that for us?
Yeah.
There is another South Park episode here.
I thought you were going to talk about the film with Will Smith in it, where he does that.
No, the South Park is so much better. One of the kids are in the school. And one of them comes up to him and he's like, my girlfriend's just like annoyed at me because I don't talk to her as well as you talk to your girlfriend. And he explains the process of how he does it. He takes her text message, puts it into ChatGPT, asks for a response. And it's like, hey, I'm thinking about getting my hair cut. What do you think about it? And he puts that message into ChatGPT. It gives out a response that's like, well, I'm sure it'll look great on you no matter what. And he copies, pastes it, sends it back, and she responds and she's like, thanks for being so supportive. I'm not sure if I'll do it anyway. And it's like this perfect passive response. And he doesn't even acknowledge the response at that point. He takes the same message, puts it into ChatGPT and produces a response he's just sent to her. And they all start doing it. And they eventually get caught out like this in real life and they all get dumped. Spoilers, but like it
remarkably accurate. Yeah. Like, this is actually ridiculous,
but it's effortless as well. Which it's lazy relationships.
It is, and like the whole idea of dating is that you are trying to find an authentic connection with somebody.
Yeah,
and you're using an AI tool to write your messages so that you can meet them in person and not be who you were in those messages. And what's really interesting in this article, they talked about how people find that they start out using it for like ideas and then they rewrite it themselves and they don't do it for every message. And then they get used to it and they're like, oh, this is just speeds things up. Like, you don't want to be wasting time writing loads of messages if they're just going to ghost you or it's not going to work out. And so then they're writing all their messages and then they're seeing the messages back from the other person. They're like, are they using AI too? Is this just two AI chatbots talking to each other? This is no longer two people talking to each other at all. There's basically no human
They're
input.
going to meet in real life and just not have any ability to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll actually both fess up, confess that they've used AI bots.
Maybe that's a good starting
and
point
it
for a
would be their great
conversation.
starting point
Yeah.
for building their relationship.
That's the only way I can see it working.
Yeah.
But like they talked about, it leads to overuse and then not being yourself at all, which really defeats the point of like authentic connection. So yeah, I do understand what drives people to it because online dating is so grim and it's such hard work. But if you're going to do it, it just doesn't make sense to do it that way. Then there's AI dating apps. This is basically apps that use AI matchmakers. So there's one that's kind of more well known than others. There's a whole bunch of them springing up, and different apps are putting in AI matchmakers into them. And Facebook's got some sort of weird thing. Facebook dating was always really dodgy. It was just full of bots. Don't know what they're doing now. But there's one called Amata. And what you do is you don't fill out a profile. You go in and you chat to the AI bot. You pick a particular AI bot and you chat to them about yourself, and it asks you questions about yourself and what you're looking for and all that. And then it goes off and chats to other people about you and promotes you to other people. Unfortunately, from the articles I've read, it doesn't seem to do it very well. So we know that a lot of these AI bots don't have a whole lot of subtlety or understanding. So there's one woman who was like, I told it that I was thinking about writing a novel or that I would like to write a novel, and found out that it was telling everybody I'd written a novel, which is quite different.
But what about profiles where people make up stuff? And they like lying on an acting CV or something like that, and you have all these skills that you don't have, the lies that people tell in their profiles.
Yeah.
Or like,
Well, now it's just the AI lying for you without your intention to do it.
or like deception in what you're actually looking for, saying you're looking for one thing and you're actually looking for another.
Yeah.
Or profiles that have content that's between the lines, like looking for someone who looks after
Yes.
themselves.
Yes.
Instead of saying they
Thin.
want someone who is thin or
Yeah.
fit, or people who are genuinely, what about sarcasm and not picking up on the tone, or
So many
there's so many
issues.
problems, but
Yeah.
also like opposites attract. So what if it's trying to align you someone who is similar to you?
Mostly opposites don't attract.
Well, come
They
on.
can do, but mostly they don't.
But if it's just going to align you to someone who is just like a clone or a mirror image of yourself,
The problem is
Problem.
it doesn't, or the good thing is it doesn't. It's not very good at this, right?
Okay.
So because it gets stuff wrong, like the woman who was interviewed said, I would like to meet someone preferably who doesn't have kids, but it's not a deal breaker for me. And it would not show her anyone with kids. So it couldn't get that subtlety at all.
Okay.
So it just wasn't really getting it. So it was still having to troll through all the people that weren't great matches because it wasn't giving good matches. One thing about that app that is good, I think, is that it only gives you 3 options each session, and then it kind of kicks you off the platform for a while. So it actually makes people take breaks. And 3 options, remember in the online dating episode, we talked about having too many options to choose
Less is
from
more.
is not good for your decision making. It actually makes you less satisfied. So fewer options is actually better. So it could be useful for that. In some ways, it's got potential, but I really see a lot of issues. So privacy, first of all. AI chats hallucinate things. They make things up. They get things wrong. You don't get a sense of who you're really talking to. So the AI chatbot comes back from talking to somebody else and tells you about them through their lens of whatever weirdness they've got going on. And you're going to meet somebody based on that. That's dangerous. You might miss red flags that would otherwise be there if you were talking to them directly or seeing their profile. Like profiles are mainly used for red flags, right? That's the screening process in them. So you might miss those kind of things. Stuff might get covered up by the AI chatbot. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know what's saying about you to other people, which is mad. And then you end up meeting in person, and eventually you have to be yourself anyway. So you might as well be having authentic communications and connections.
So you build a bond and a connection with someone through peeling, like that social penetration theory again, of learning about them, and then you build enough confidence with them, talking to them via whatever app you're using, if it is an app or text or whatever,
Yeah.
and then you meet them in person and you have enough concrete laid that you can actually get some foundations in, ask some challenging or difficult questions. Like psychologists are the worst people to date because we go on a date and come on, like we're going to go for difficult questions very early on. And like we'll talk about topics like mental health because we're not fazed by them. and other people might not necessarily be ready for them. So if you don't have any of that groundwork laid, and someone comes at you with a curveball in the middle of dinner or something, and you're like, where the hell did that come from? So I see all kinds of issues. I'd love to see someone chatfish one of these dating chatbots, though. And see what comes out of it, and whether you have a successful date from it or not.
Imagine how enthusiastic that would end up.
I really wonder, like the chatbot for the dating app that is interviewing you to set you up with someone else could fall for you. Who knows?
It could. Have you ever seen any examples where they've put two chatbots talking to each other?
I've seen one where they put three side by side, and they realize that they're being listened to by a third chatbot, and they move into a coded version of communication, and then the other third piece moves into that same coded communication.
That's wild.
And I'm just like, what is this language that they're using? And then I was like, oh my God, this is in my algorithm.
Now you're going to get weird stuff.
Switch off the phone.
Whereas I saw the one the other day where a guy got two chatbots to talk to each other as if they were friends catching up. And so it was like, we're going to have such an interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to talking to you so much. I'm really looking forward to catching up. I'm ready to start whenever you are. I'm ready to start whenever you are. It's going to be such an and it just kept going.
Could you imagine being stuck next to those people on the Lewis or something?
Oh my God, it was ridiculous. So yeah. All right, I think that's us on that one.
Okay. It's really interesting.
It is an interesting space, problematic space, but I think some people are getting benefits from it, and it's not necessarily having a negative impact, but I think there's a huge risk in using them.
It's an ethical minefield.
And
I'd love to see where it goes, where the data is stored, the long-term outcomes. Are people going to just, is it a fad or a phase, or are people going to get bored of these?
Yeah.
Is the community of it going to shrink down to a niche of people once that changes? Or are they ethically going to just remove all of them?
Yeah.
If money's being made now.
Hard to know. We will do another episode on using AI for therapy, which is also problematic and ethically interesting. So we'll come back to that one in a few weeks. You've been listening to In Bits, the podcast that deconstructs our digital lives. I'm Nicola Fox Hamilton.
And I'm Liam Challoner.
And you can find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at In Bits Podcast.
We'd love to hear your feedback about our different episodes. So if you've any thoughts or experiences you want to share with us, or any topics you want us to focus in on, feel free to send them to us through our socials. This episode was edited and produced by Owen Hurley. Thank you, Owen, for our lovely music. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
See you then.